Hello everyone, and welcome to a presentation of musculoskeletal disorders of the elbow and forearm. This has been divided into 3 video presentations to make it a little bit easier for you to manage. There are 3 separate PowerPoints and 3 separate lecture notes that are posted on Blackboard, so you should go ahead and make sure you have those gathered and ready to go before we start. The 3 parts, we're going to start as we have before with our other joint structures with the joint structure and function, a quick review. The bulk of the presentation, the largest part, will be on the disorders, the musculoskeletal disorders themselves. And then the last short presentation will be on the exam. And either Casey or Jean will be reviewing that exam and going through that with you in class. So I hope you're ready to get engaged and you're ready for an exciting learning experience. This, of course, is the elbow and forearm complex. You can recall, I hope, that within the elbow joint complex we have the humeral ulnar joint and the humeral radial joint, as well as the proximal radial ulnar joint. All 3 of those articulations are within the joint capsule and make up the elbow. The elbow here on the ulnar side comprises the trochlea of the humerus, and that fits in, of course, to the concave trochlear notch on the ulna. On the humeral radial side, the capitulum articulates with that little indentation on the top of the radius called the fovea. And then finally, the proximal radial ulnar joint, convex head of the radius, is articulating with a little bit of a concave notch called the radial notch on the ulna. You can see the joint capsule illustrated here. That's surrounding it and then reinforced by 3 major ligaments, the radial collateral ligament, the ulnar collateral ligament, and then of course the annular ligament of the radius. Remember, radial and ulnar collateral ligaments also go by the names of lateral and medial collateral ligaments. And do you remember what the word annular means? That's right, it means ring. And so this makes kind of a ring around the head of the radius to keep the head of the radius in place, keep it from slipping down. Yes, I know annular is spelled wrong. I'm glad you caught that. I have here another view where the joint capsule has been removed, but it retains the annular ligament. And again, you can see the articular surface here in the humerus is convex. The articular surface on the ulna, and again the top of the radius, is concave. So we have a concave moving on convex. Let's back up and look at the distal radial ulnar joint. This time the head of the ulna is convex, and it's articulating into the concave ulnar notch on the radius. But remember, during open chain pronation and supination, it's actually the radius that's moving around the ulna. So our arthrokinematics, we have a convex head moving on a concave ulna proximally, but then a concave radius moving on a convex ulna distally. And let's look again one more time at this illustration, and we can see also included here the interosseous membrane. And remember that that membrane serves as another form of adhesion between the radius and ulna to provide some stability in the forearm. And it also helps to transmit force as it's coming up through the carpal bones and helps to share force between the radius and the ulna. And it helps to transfer that force to the more stable portion of the elbow, which of course is the humeral ulnar joint. Let's go on to the muscles then. We're looking here at an anterior view at the elbow flexors, and we of course have the biggest muscle, which is the flexor, is the biceps, or the biceps brachii. The long head, remember, we've talked about that with the shoulder because it comes up through the bicipital groove or intertubercular groove and comes up to attach on the supraglenoid tubercle of the scapula. And as such, it can be involved with shoulder problems, and we'll be talking about that when we look at shoulder dysfunction. Short head of the biceps also really technically crossing the shoulder joint, attaching to the coracoid process. And then distally, of course, they blend into a common tendon and attach on the radial tuberosity or the bicipital tuberosity of the radius. It's a very powerful flexor, and we'll talk about what else it does in a second. Deep to the biceps, of course, is the brachialis. And then we can also see here on the side here the coracobrachialis. And then in addition, the last elbow flexor here is the brachioradialis. We're moving on now to the elbow extensors, and you can see here the triceps posteriorly and the anconeus together. And of course the triceps, 3 heads attaching, one head that is crossing the shoulder, assisting with elbow extension, or I'm sorry, shoulder extension, and then the other 2 heads on the humerus. And then the little tiny anconeus. Both muscles are innervated by the radial nerve, as are most of the extensors in the upper extremity. The forearm pronators are called Pronator Teres and Pronator Quadratus. Pronator Teres coming off of that medial epicondyle of the humerus, down in that diagonal over to the middle of the radius. And remember, that is a really good pronator because it crosses the axis for forearm pronation and supination, which is between the head of the radius and the head of the ulna. So you see they make kind of a nice X there. And then the other one, Pronator Quadratus, just a little bit of a rectangular shaped muscle at the end of the distal radius and ulna, and again crossing over that axis to do pronation. And then finally for the forearm supination, we have the biceps brachii, not pictured here, but the biceps brachii that we looked at before is really the big powerful supinator. And then of course we have the supinator muscle itself. Recall that the biceps is innervated by the musculocutaneous nerve, the supinator by the radial nerve. And again we see the redundancy that allows us to make sure that we have that ability to supinate so we can hold things in our hand and function. This brings us to the end of the structure and function section. So at this time you're going to switch over, take a little comfort break, and then switch over and you can go on to the video about musculoskeletal problems and disorders.